Evening I prepared for the morning lesson, and then Robson that anyone to do the morning lesson by that he feels his role, but not with respect to him, but with respect to the entire world. Please right now brings his physical body, and what remains for us is expectation lesson. Intention, incorporated in an intention, so I sit here for friends and they're here for me. Any of us demands his friend, and even though horses may be, he wants to sleep, he thinks about some problems of today or tomorrow, going to be stolen concern for the friends, and he doesn't let any of his ego, and he only pressures his point about the friends. That's the only reason he came here, only for that contentment to the Creator during the preparation for the lesson on the path to him. So from within let's embrace tightly one another. Rabash writes in letter 24, you must always stand guard all day and all night, meaning when you feel a state of day or feel a state of night, we say to the Creator, yours is the day and yours is also the night. Thus the night too, the darkness of night comes from the Creator to men's favour too. As it is written, day to day utters speech and night to night expresses knowledge. It follows that you must awaken the heart of the friends until the flame rises by itself. By this we will be rewarded with awakening the love of the Creator upon us. Read it again. Rush letter 24. You must always stand guard all day and all night, meaning when you feel a state of day or feel a state of night, we say to the Creator, yours is the day and yours is also the night. Thus the night to darkness of night comes from the Creator to men's favour. 2. As it is written, day to day utters speech and night to night expresses knowledge. It follows that you must awaken the heart of the friends until the flame rises by itself, and by that you'll be rewarded with awakening the love of the Creator upon us. Active workshop. How can we help the friends to be incorporated in the lesson? Again, active workshop. How can we help the friends to be incorporated in the lesson? We came here to the most important thing that we have in reality, which is the morning lesson. It's the place where we connect even more between us and to the Creator through the Kabbalists, and we have a huge privilege to be partners in this, to walk under the guidance and direction of the Kabbalists, more and more forward until the end of correction. We're truly rewarded. Nothing so practical to do in the lesson except to build a vessel to pray for each other, to name the upper force we draw not to ourselves, but to our entire worldly. Yes, the lesson is the best time to build the vessel, the best time to draw the reforming light. That's the only way we will be able to build the clay, that we will be able to connect and become incorporated in a single desire. I just looked at friends from Asia. For them it's, I don't know, 11:00 a.m. 12 p.m. less middle of the day, work day. There they incorporate. I think we all try to incorporate somehow to find ourselves in the holy. You know, we hope and pray that the true place will be revealed before us. Number 2, letter 10. Do what you can, and the salvation of the Lord is as the blink of an eye. The most important thing before you today is the unity of friends, exerting that more and more, for it can recompense for all the faults. Workshop. Let's exert in holding the unity of the friends and ask for the Creator's help. Let's exert in holding the unity of the friends and ask for the Creator's help. For hello, we are reading from writings of Balasam in Shabarti article 175. And if the way be too far for you, you can find the study material on our site or in the Arvud system. You can press in the study materials button. You can also ask questions through the system. Chosen question be asked during the course of the lesson. Rough please. This too is a short article. It's an important one, very practical. We encounter it because it's about our relation, our attitude to the path to the goal, how we feel all kinds of interferences, distractions, and it's hard for us to convince ourselves that these disturbances are necessary, that specifically through them we arise and don't continue on the same plane. On the same plane meaning like everyone else in this world, precisely because there are interferences, disturbances. We have to overcome them, rise above them, and in this way we gradually reach the spiritual world. So let's see. Read 175. And if the way be too far for you, and if the way be too far for you, so that you are not able to carry it. He interpreted why is the way so far. Because you are not able to carry it. If this is because he cannot carry the burden of Torah and mitzvah commandments, and hence he regards the way as far. The advice for it says the verse, bind up the money in your hand. Silver or money means longing to draw, longing in the work. Thus through the desire, the craving for the Creator, he will be able to carry the burden of Torah and mitzvot. Also concerns shame. This is because one is created for the goal of glorifying heaven as it is written, blessed is who created us for his glory. In general, Torah and are things that one does in order to be favored by him. This is because it is the slave's nature to want to be liked by his master's sins. Then his master's art is for him. So it is here. The many actions and meticulousness that one becomes proficient in are but a means by which to be favored in his eyes. And then he will have the desired goal of him. And a person observes and to be liked by people, and he turns the need of heaven into a meaning. Through them, he will be liked by people, and as long as one has not been rewarded with the Torah for her sake, he works for people. Although one has no other choice but to work for people, he should still be ashamed of such servitude. Then through this, he will be awarded the of holiness, meaning to want, and bind up the money in your hand. This means that even though the craving is not up to man, if he has no desire for it, he cannot do a thing. Nevertheless, he should show the desire for the desire to want, and perhaps combined comes from the word wanted. One needs to show a desire for it. To show the desire and the craving to want the Creator, meaning to want to increase the glory of heaven, to bestow contentment upon him, to be favored by him. There is a discernment of Zahav gold, and there is a discernment of Kf, means having Kissi longing in general, and Zahav gold made of the words give. This means that he wants only one thing, and all the longing and the craving that he had for several things are cancelled in this desire, and he says give this, only meaning he does not want anything but to raise the divinity from the dust. This is all he wants. It follows that even though he sees that he does not have the proper yearning and desire, nevertheless, he should still see and exert in deeds and thoughts to obtain the desire. This is called and bind up the money in your hand. One should not think that it is that. If it is in the hands of man, it is a small thing. Rather for oxen with grace, or for sheep, etc., for only by this will he be rewarded with the most sublime lights. No, yes, well, the article talks about the deficiency that we have to develop. We are given a little bit of it, and we have to increase it, give it shape the right direction, and then we'll reach the goal. Otherwise the road will be long and hard. It all depends on how we process how we process what we are given in order to advance towards the goal. If we process it correctly, we advance in the shortest way, in a straight line from where we are and straight to the goal, and then we can really ideally go through the path as we read in the study of the 10's introduction to the study of the 10 Sot. We can do it within 3 to 5 years, but if we don't accept the conditions, if we can't process them correctly, join them from one person to the next to increase them through all kinds of activities, such as unity in the group and all kinds of forms of correct study, then we prolong the way. This is what it says. And if the way be too long for you, too far for you, that the road becomes long and far, and then he cannot bear it. It seems impossible. Too long, too hard interpretation. Why is the way so far, so long? Because you are not able to carry it, to bear it. You can't overcome it. Why? Because you cannot carry the burden of, and the commandments, the carry of the kingdom of heaven, the burden of the kingdom of heaven. That's why the road seems too far and long. He's probably not using correctly all the instruments, all the means, because the Creator makes no concessions. We are in the opposite nature from his in the beginning of the way, and we have to discover time and time again how opposite we are from him. But by this we correct ourselves more and more in adjusting and adapting ourselves to him. That's the whole path. This is why we walk on both feet. 2 lines on the left, we discover how opposite we are from the Creator on the right, and accordingly we can correct ourselves and see how similar we are to the Creator in this way we go left, right. Darkness, light, day, night. Day, this is how we advance. So he interpreted, why is the road so long? Because he cannot bear it or carry it. Because he cannot carry the burden of Torah and mitzvot, commandments. Commandments are all kinds of actions we take in order to bring ourselves back to the correct form of the vessel, of where we are all connected together. First of all, those who have a yearning for it, those who are called straight to the Creator and follow in them all the people in the world, writes, as red, black, white, yellow. Everyone should come to it. And their advice for it, the verse says, bundle up the money or the silver in your hand. Kef, silver or money, means keserfin, longing. In other words, there is a desire, we receive the beginning of the desire from above. But the main thing we need to develop, in addition to the desire, is the longing. This is what we have to come to. That's what we have to come to. How through the work between us should draw to extend the in the work, the longing in the work I'm willing to work in order to have a desire for the spiritual goal. Through the yearning and longing for the work of the Creator, we can create. We can carry the burden of the kingdom of heaven or the burden of Torah and mitzvot. So I'll be able to maintain the laws of connection because the main thing is love. Love your friend as yourself. This is the great rule of the Torah. And also, yes, the longing concerns shame. Up because one was created for the goal of glorifying the Creator, meaning that every time I grow, I see how the Creator grows bigger, greater in my eyes, more important, more comprehensive, all-encompassing, and accordingly, I check my own situation. This is called existing in order to increase the glory of heaven. As it is written, blessed is our God who has created us for his glory. The Creator created us in order for us to appreciate him, exalt him, extol him, seemingly because by doing this we rise, we grow, in order to. In this way we discover him, the man of the matter of in general. There are things that one does in order to be favoured by the Creator, because the nature of the slave is to want to be liked by his master. Since then his master's heart is for him, to the extent that we are dedicated to the Creator, to the power of bestowal, the power of connection. To that extent we begin to see how it is the great all-encompassing law of nature, that everything is in all of creation, all the worlds. And so it is here, continues, the many actions and meticulousness that one becomes proficient in are but a means, meaning all the commandments, all the activities, all the exercises we do are only instruments, means by which to be favoured by the Creator, and then he will have the desired goal from him, meaning to the extent that we try to approach the Creator and to keep his condition of connection among us in order to approach him. This is the only condition. When we build the vessel and expect him to be revealed in the vessel, according to the equivalence of form between him and our vessel, our connection, then accordingly we approach the goal. So it is here all the many actions and strictness that a person becomes proficient in are only a means by which to be favoured by the Creator, and then he will have the goal, the desired goal in his eyes. Then we will approach and be incorporated in the goal, and we will realise it. And a person observes dua, meaning all kinds of activities in order to achieve correction, but to be liked by people, if he does it not for the purpose of actual correction, but for the sake of people, because he could. He can do these things for people, yes, and he turns the needs of heaven into a means by which to succeed in corporal life, right? In other words, he wants to advance his spirituality in order to get success, corporeal success from this, meaning through them he will be liked by people, and as long as one has not been rewarded with the Torah for her sake, he works for people for the sake of people, meaning whether we want to or not, as long as we haven't achieved the actual intention to bestow, we are necessarily in the aim to bestow in corporality, the low, the small one, and we're working for the sake of people. It's the law, it is our nature, and although one has no other choice to do anything except to work for people, meaning to take pride, to exalt, to himself, to glorify himself in their eyes, he should still be ashamed of such servitude. that because he has no choice, he's working only to glorify himself in the eyes of the world. This is what is happening to him, and this is what obligates him. Then through this, the longing, meaning these yearnings to be liked by people, he will be rewarded with a kf, the longing of holiness, even by this gradually if he works. And against his will he's still working. It's called integrating intention, to bestow with intention to receive the reward from the environment, so they will appreciate him. For example, he's still yearning for holiness, and gradually it operates on him and bind up the money or the silver in your hand. This means that even though the craving is not up to man what he wants and why he wants it, it all comes from above. If he has no desire for it, he cannot do anything. We know this on ourselves that sometimes we lose the yearning, the desire, and see how then we fall and we can't do anything. Nevertheless, he should show the desire for the longing, meaning I want to long. I want to be burning with longing, meaning the desire to want to yearn. We have to show the desire for it, meaning we have to show the desire, and longing to yearn for the Creator, meaning to yearn to increase the glory of heaven. In the Creator, the power of bestow, the power of connection will be great and prominent and controlling all of reality. So I have to behave in such a way as if I am only in this force, and I yearn to increase and glorified, and in this way I come to a state where I'm liked by the Creator. And there are small additions to it to this article. There's a discernment of Zahav gold, and there's a discernment of Kf silver. What are silver and gold in the wisdom of Kabbalah? Kf means he is longing in general longing for spirituality. Zahav, meaning give this gold. It's when he wants only one thing, when he's more directed, and he's working specifically for this, and all the longing and yearning he has for several things are cancelled in this one desire. And he says, give this only, give this, meaning he does not want anything but to raise the divinity from the dust. It follows that even though one sees that he does not have the proper yearning and desire as it should be for achieving the goal, he should still see and exert in deeds and thoughts to obtain the desire. It's as if I have no yearning, why am I coming to the wisdom of Kabbalah, to the group, to the learning, to all those things? I see others people have gathered here. They have the desire, the yearning, and they get up, and they run, and they do stuff. The Creator gave it to them, and he didn't give it to me. If he didn't give it to me, I can sit quietly. No, not necessarily. You need to nevertheless come to such a society, and yearn to do all kinds of activities to immerse yourself in them, to bond with them, to dilute, dissolve in them. By this you will receive their impressions from them. Do what they do even though they do it willingly, and you're doing it unwillingly, like a little child who looks at grown-ups and does the same things they do without knowing why he does it, but he looks at them and does it. If we do the same, it will give us the desire. Through them, through those people who have a great deficiency, great desire, we will receive the deficiency through them. The important thing is to anal before them is and try to be like children before grown-ups. This way we can obtain the desire. And this is called bind up the money or the silver in your hand. One should not think of it as a small thing. If I'm not giving it now, I'm just going to go to sleep. No, it is in your hands to do. Rather for oxen with grace or sheep, meaning by this you will be rewarded with the most sublime lights. This is called helping one another. This is called using the general will to receive the vessel that we yearn for, which is a complete vessel, not a broken one. So if we, even though we're broken pieces from the vessel, we yearn to return to unite ourselves as much as possible. Accordingly, we can raise ourselves new vessel. We can do that. This is what we have to do. Therefore, what does the article try to say? If the way be too long for you, when it gets harder and too heavy on you, it is just an opportunity that you are given now to advance more substantially, for real, if you know how to do it through connection, through trying to be liked by the environment. The environment takes you as if on a boat, and with it, you reach the shore. Okay, good. Now, how can the environment influence me in the moment that I don't have any desire or yearning for progress? You're like a sick person who is on people's hands, and they take care of you. But you have to get as close to them as you can, and they will take care of you, because you have made a covenant among you, an agreement, that within the 10 you reveal the connection between you and you exalt it to such an extent that in this connection you reveal the Creator. This is the pact. We started as a 10, and now we have to continue, and each one should see himself how much as he can according to the power and opportunity that he is right now, he takes part in it. So even though he's sick not physically, but spiritually, meaning he is powerless, he's unable, it doesn't matter, he should nevertheless keep his place in the covenant, and likewise when each one helps the others, they all reach the goal. And we need to understand that every moment what each one feels those things, and can do all this, the divinity, the Creator, gives it to us. He stands inside and wants to reveal to us himself, meaning how he is working with us. So if we begin every single moment, we try to want to be his partners, to be a little more connected through our efforts, a little closer to what the Creator is doing with us, so that all our states we relate to them as exercises, and on top of these exercises from him, we reciprocate, we perform our own activities, our own responses to them. So through all our responses and our activities where we respond, and he acts again, and we respond. This is called the dance. By this we connect among ourselves and with the Creator, and the Creator through the center of the 10 connects to us, and then we begin to discover the mutual, the reciprocal activities between us and him, and then by this the group becomes organized a 10, which is then called the individual soul. Today we have many such groups, and we can certainly through this work, as long as we perform these activities in the right order, so we can awaken the whole world. We can awaken the whole world to really perform a spiritual revolution. All the revolutions happen through a small team of people, and here we are already a big team, a spiritual one connected to the upper force. We really do. We really can do great things. This is what he's saying. And if the way be too far for you, as he writes here in this article, it is where we feel each time that the road is long, but it's because the Creator has revealed to us layer by layer more and more results of the shattering. So it seems to us as if we're farther and farther away, but we're not further away. Not at all. It happens to us in order for us to make greater and greater efforts and reveal our connection to the goal precisely, with more precision than before, with higher resolution than before, and in this way we aim ourselves more and more precisely towards the goal. It's when you fly from the United States to Europe. So first of all, you fly out of the United States. We're crossing the ocean. You go over places, you fly over them, and then you still don't see where you're flying. But you're already on the way, and it's the same here. Even though we don't see the goal, we need to try to keep it on our sides at the center of our vision, so that all the things that we receive and do, even though they are still far, we're still far from achieving the goal. They are all necessary and are revealed in order to achieve the goal. They all stem from the soul of Adam, when we were all together in one desire, and from the shattering, when we lost the connections between us, in order to now reconstruct by ourselves these connections that we had before. And as we reconstruct them, when we search by ourselves how we should be connected, and it's against our broken desire, because we don't want to connect, we don't want to achieve the goal of the intention to bestow it, opposite from our nature. So by this we create the vessel with the right power, against our will, precisely because it's against our will. It gives us the powers of bestow, the powers of connection that are very great, and then we rise from the level of the created being to the level of the Creator. Okay, that KF1. We connect all our yearnings in order to reach the eye, the needle in the tem. Ask, of course, we can't. All we can is, with our intellect, maybe with some feelings or by words, we can express how important it is to us. It's important, okay, but other than increasing the importance, we can't do anything. But to the extent that we scrutinize the importance, to that extent we should see that it's not up to us. It's not in our hands, and we only need to turn to the Creator, and do this with Him, do this business, this partnership with Him where we try to yearn. And the Creator helps us with the yearning, with making the vessel, and we ourselves receive from Him all the powers, all the means. We connect among us and build for Him a place to be revealed in all the created beings, His blood. He writes here, there is this mutual desire that we all reach the same desire, and then needs to be more scrutinized. That I decide at I want only to bestow, and then you can raise divinity from the dust. What are the steps in the work when we come to the wisdom of Kabbalah? We just want to know what we're living for. It's a general question. Besides this, each one, whether he's aware of it or not, he dresses it in all kinds of clothing of his own. Why? What? For how he wants to discover the essence of life, the purpose of life. This is number one. Number two, as we work, we begin to learn to work to know the shape of form. We encounter many questions. We immediately, as much as we understand, we begin to learn that we are a desire to receive, opposite from the Creator. We are bad. We can't do anything. We're opposite from spirituality. And in this way, we don't know what to do with ourselves. And then we come into despair, a feeling of remoteness. It's called the fog, darkness, etc. In other words, I don't feel satisfaction in my will to receive. That is willing to somehow be filled. But it can't be filled because it's opposite from the source of light. And in this way we begin to seemingly, it gets complicated. We want to feel, to receive, to know, to feel. And we're told, no, you need to put these things aside and develop a desire to work without the goal, without an egoistic goal. You need to make efforts precisely in things that you don't really want, don't feel as important. Why would you do it? Do it because you look at others and they look at you, and together you come to a state where what wasn't important to you before becomes important. Why? Because there's no other choice. If you want to reach the truth, you have to rise above the false, above the falsehood, above the egoistic will to receive. And this is how we advance. It's not simple against our will, but we have the upper force which nevertheless nurtures us, operates on us. We feel that we are changing every so often, that He's helping us, and He improves us every time, makes us better, and this is how we achieve corrections. Again, if I may ask a question regarding the article, we say that we go from the love of people to the love of the Creator, meaning we have to build towards the friends in such a way that the Creator is present. Here it says a person should be ashamed. Person needs to be embarrassed that his entire life is in this, that he wants to do what's pleasing to the eyes of the audience of the world. That's what each one wants to do, because then we receive appreciation from the audience. Look, he's wise, he's big, he's brave, and so on. All our work in this world that we do, all humans, what they do is only in order to be bigger in the eyes of the environment and the society, humanity. Look what they're doing, from the biggest managers to the smallest people. Each and everyone measures himself with respect to the environment, and he doesn't want anything that fills himself like a beast, right? That's clear. And besides, that only to enlarge himself is ego in the eyes of the people. That's the most important thing to a person. Animals don't have such a thing still. Vegetative, animate, they don't have that. Rather instinctively, let's say by the wolves. All sorts of animals, they have groups or packs where they may have struggles like who is the leader of the group, but it's on the degree of instinct. They can't do anything about it. It's not in their choice. It's simply the instinct that pushes these animals to behave as such, but rather by us. It's also instinct that it's called evil. Inclination, the will to receive, but it pushes us already for things that are bigger. And that's how we do all our work, is to find favour in the eyes of the people. And there is nothing worse than when a person is degraded, is put down, when he is caused shame. That's the worst. And we in our spiritual path need to be ready. That spirituality is so important to us that it doesn't matter to us what the whole world will tell us. The main thing is what you with your friends can be adhered in the Creator. That's the most important thing. And so, while the opinions of the whole world, we don't look down at it. We understand them. and we know our place and their place, but not that we work in order to find favor in their eyes. Moscow 4. Moscow 4. Thank you. I wanted to ask, when a person, initially, observes Torah and commandments in order to receive, to be light by the Creator, what is the need for it? I don't know exactly what is being translated there. Can you ask a question? Ask again. Is asking him to ask in his own words. Repeat your question. Question in your words. It seems like a person is working for the Creator. He wants to work for the Creator, but initially, he's only working for his environment, the friends, to be liked by them, and that's why he's working. That's what I'm saying. You don't understand the text. The text is translated not exactly correct, and so I'm explaining it to you always each and every text I read and explain. What I recommend doing is what I once did with myself in the beginning of the path. I would take an article from Shamarty and I would paraphrase it in my language. My language doesn't matter to me how he's writing there. Money in your hand and the way before. For you all sorts of such things. What do I need all these nice words for? I need to know what I need, and not all this poeticism and this nice literature. I need something for myself, shortened to the point that I shall not be mistaken. So what I recommend for you after the lesson, whenever you have some time during the day, you take this article and you write it out in your language, in your words that you should understand what it's talking about. And this is what you should do with each and every article of Shabarti. First of all, it will be shorter and clearer, and you won't have questions. I promise you that whatever questions you may have, you yourself in this paraphrasing, this work you're doing, you will scrutinize it. That's it. The more we advance, the farther we feel from the Creator. What gives us the power, the strength to yearn to continue to advance? This that we went through some previous state. This previous state is already in us, and it's our good foundation, certain degree, and then is revealed to us a new degree. You've seen how the little kids, they climb the stairs, right? You walk the stairs, right? And go up, right? But the kid, he sits on one step, then he begins to rise to the next degree like it's hard for him. We all see it, right? That's exactly how we are. So first of all, we have our own step, and we need now to rise on the next degree. The next degree, of course, we need forces for it. We need appreciation of the next degree, that it shall be bigger, not to be afraid of it, to reveal desire for it. It could be we don't have enough desire for it. I need to connect with the society, because each and every degree is that we connect more and more. And when I look at them, I don't see that we're connecting more. I don't see it, rather seems to me nothing's changing. But that's not correct. Not correct. Otherwise, we'd have no opportunity to rise. What's written? And if the way be too far for you, right, that the way appears to be farther is because you're capable of putting up with seeing it as far and difficult, and you know how to overcome the distance and the hardship. And for you this path shall turn into pleasure. For truly, like mountain climbers, people climb mountains, but what's the point, right? Why are they doing this? For what is there so difficult, so dangerous? But no, they say, this sensation that you climb the mountain, there's nothing more than that, nothing bigger, and I believe them, because it's by root and branch. That's how it occurs. So we don't want to climb these mountains, but what we have before us is what's called the mountain of the Creator. And here we need only to come together between us with importance. That's called that you shall accumulate, that they in your hands. That's from the word longing. And if you generate this longing in your hands along with the friends, there's no problem, because envy, lust and honor bring a person out of the world from the place where he is in, that's called his world, to a higher place. And thus envy, lust and honor, it all depends on the society, your connection with the society. Bolsher, hello. What is the quality of silver and gold in the work in the 10? What is the meaning of the quality of gold and quality of silver in our work in the tent? And how should we work with it? Silver or money that he generates, tendency, a desire for it, and is it that he already found the correct desire and he's progressing? That all the yearnings he had before, he already processed them and is advancing correctly. He already has a desire which is called Sav. We've spoken about this, that in Hebrew, there's no words that. They just came to us from some, incidentally. Rather, they all come from the influence of light on the vessels. That's where all the vocabulary, the dictionary of words in Hebrew comes from. It's now we speak this language, right? But usually it wasn't actually spoken, was only used for scrutinizing spiritual vessels. Alishmer, not for her sake to for her sake. It's the desire of the Creator, the desire of the Creator. In order that you shall awaken the Creator, that will shall bring you from Lishma, not for her sake to Lemur for her sake. You need to awaken him, and in order to awaken him, you need to make correct preparations for the reception of Lishma from above. But you need to make these preparations below, meaning you need to be in a 10. You need to be tied to them in whatever you're in, something unrealistic, whatever you're in, whatever the Creator gives you, meaning with all the conditions he gives you that you use them in order to be tied with the 10. And that's actually the condition for the reception of Lishma. Where will he give you Lishma from? Lishma is called the intention to bestow. It's called above the ego. Where does he give? You need to be ready in such a network of connection with the friends in order to receive this illumination from above called Dishmers, upper light that influences you and fills you, changes you from on the intention to receive to the intention to bestow. So how will you receive it if you're not ready? If the environment's not ready, but to prepare yourself in the environment, you must, and then you'll advance. Right 3. World. Do we want to resemble our environment? Do we want to resemble on the one hand, on the other hand we want to stand out each of us? What's the root of this? I, as an egoist, I feel my ego so only with respect to the environment. If not for the environment, I'm not an egoist. I have no one to be feel myself above, to be bigger than to control. Meaning, if a person lives inside his family primitively like thousands of years ago, that's not called an egoist. The ego begins to develop from when people began to connect into some bigger groups, and then the will to receive awakened in order to control others, to dominate others, and so on, in order to develop the ego, in order to be a bigger society. The bigger the society is, the ego can develop more. Then we have hierarchy. We have all sorts of layers, levels, and so on. That's how the ego builds us, and accordingly we seemingly build the environment, the society, humanity. It's all by the increasing of the ego, and all of us in each one, and all of us together according to how the upper light influences us. All right, okay. U7. Thank you, Rob. Oh, what does with grace or sheep mean? Right. One should not think that if it is in the hands of men, it is a small thing. Rather for oxen with grace, and for sheep, etc. Meaning that we can increase the awakening that we receive from above, and bring it to realization below as the most important thing. He continues, meaning for only by this will he be rewarded with the most sublime light. Meaning, don't think that what you're receiving is small vessels, small desires. No, if you arrange them correctly, you'll reach a state that specifically by the oxen or sheep, you'll advance. There's a lot of commentary on this oxen and sheep, but ultimately in sum total it is light of mercy, and light of wisdom that will advance. This is in parallel Toph and Sar, to light of mercy, vessels of bestow, and to vessels reception, light of. So let's continue on quickly. How far are we really from the Creator? Good question, really good. As much as your will to receive controls you. I have no other opportunity to answer. You need to cut from your will to receive off, and use it on detention to bestow. Not just cut it off. Maybe today you'll begin to stop eating, then stop drinking, then day after stop breathing. No, you're cutting off from your will to receive as much as you're capable to more and more. Concentrate all these matters to be directed to connection with the environment and connection through it with the Creator. That's it. To what extent, that depends on us. We now are, as you also see now, with the external world in acceleration, in very rapid development. So it's hard to say what the distance is. Says we're in the last generation, so we must make the effort to truly live light in the last generation, and all the rest is not important to me. The baby's who's born today, does he know what period of time he's in? What conditions? He doesn't know. I look at my grandkids. They have no idea. I have. The youngest one is 1.5 years. What does he know? Look at him, and then look at a baby who lived 100 or 1,000 years ago. Same thing, same thing. Thus, we don't understand yet where we are, but we need to believe in colists and do actions like they say, and then we will feel very quickly how much the time is unique, how much we receive a reaction and advance. The goal is to hasten the times of development. PT 31. If we could describe the ideal 10 that can hasten time in the most correct way, and every friend's yearning for spirituality, how would we describe the relationships among the friends in the 10? Each one wants to help the others to reach spirituality as quickly as possible. That's it. That's called, and each one shall help his friend. We don't need anything besides that. You can say that. That all our work, where the distance that all our stops along the path, we should understand that the main thing is to help the friends, and in such a mutual manner, we push, all of us, the entire 10, to spirituality. That if I care for the friends, that I truly stand like behind them and push them forward to spirituality. That actually, in this I'm realizing myself, and such each and everyone is as mullet. With respect to the first 9, that's how we need to work. That mullet works in opposition from itself, rejection of itself in order to support the first 9. And this is its entire goal. And then we will operate in this manner towards the goal, towards the group we advance very quickly. It seems like in the 10 there are friends that you don't need to help them. It seems like they manage to overcome, and some friends don't manage, and they have more difficulties spiritually. Nobody can overcome without assistance from you in your tongue. Nobody. No such thing that they're advancing on their own. That's not progress. They can be wiser. They can be speaking nicer. But spiritually, in spiritual degrees, nobody can rise even to the smallest of degrees if he doesn't receive a push from the friends. Nobody. And so if somebody feels that he has advanced, it's a sign that the friends have thought about him. 1. What should we do in order to accelerate the yearning while there is burdening of the heart? Let example, they give an example to others. If I see, let's say, that somebody is not in such a good mood, he's weakened. So I come to him and I tell him, listen, you see that other guy, for in the group, it doesn't matter. Let's say, John, right, you see, I think he really needs some help. Let's go together with you and begin to think about him and show him how much we can advance. That's it. And I'm not even, let's say, intending to this John, right, I'm intending to this first friend that I'm talking to him, that I want to make of him a partner to help that same third friend. So I'm awakening him with this. But in such a manner, it's the best way. And then he feels responsibility. He feels some goal on the way, importance, action. And in such a manner, he exits his state. The best thing to exit each and every state is to incorporate in an action of bestow. Well, let's go on to women. We have another big vessel, very strong. A question from Mark 36. What's the difference between working for people to working for the Creator? We cannot be directed to the Creator because the Creator is everything. Its force, mind, desire, intention, state, includes everything. He swallows everything. And so, I must yearn to everyone to the Creator, and it cannot be that I am directed to him on my own. It cannot be. I must take the entire vessel into account because on my own I am a very small in the general vessel of Adam. And if I'm not talking to the others, I'm not even a because R is illuminating, but I can only illuminate when I have 10. And so the question is then, what are we doing? How do we reach that? So we connect, and we turn to the Creator from this connection, and we request of him to connect us in a correct manner, because who knows how I'm connected, correct or not correct, and the Creator corrects the connection between us, and that's how we reach correction. And when we come closer to one another in this extent, we're getting closer to the Creator, and this is the most precise measurement. If I could just identify in how much I am close to the friends, but in this I am measuring actually my closeness to the Creator. I have no other vessel, and we don't need, because in the extent that we are connecting in the 10, in this extent we get closer to the Creator. He is within us inside. And so to measure, we can only by this, that we feel the friends close. And here the friends, of course, it's not simple. I don't feel them so close. I always have something against them. Something that stops me, that's cooling me down. And we need to work on that. Once again, how do we work? It's desirable that we together, each one that he feels some distance from the other. Then it doesn't matter the who we're sitting even in a round table right with big distance from each one, like you see it's in the UN or all sorts of places how politicians do. But we turn to the Creator to connect between us from lack of choice. First of all, tell him that you don't want and that you are rejecting and pushing one another. Yes, we reveal to the evil how much it is present, and then suddenly you begin to reveal how it's so silly. What are we talking about? Where are we? When I'm rejecting them, my friends. Yes, what for? What do I get from this? What is this life that I am making such calculations compared to that before us? We have an eternal goal. How is it possible that suddenly I am like in some swamp of egoistic calculations? And then you scrutinize, and you'll have a renewed force that you turn to the Creator and you request. Women are more capable of this than men. So please do it and give us an example. Because specifically from the will to receive, women can succeed and save the men. In the privilege of the righteous women, do Israel exit Egypt, specifically women. That's what's written in the Torah. So we're ready and expecting review. Let's summarize what we heard in the lesson. Okay, no one can advance without help from the friends. We need to hear that again and again. We heard that again in the lesson. Everything depends on the nearness between us. As much as we will work on the nearness between us, that we will find the Creator. Yes, and this closeness between us is our means to add yearning to the goal. It's our way of generating this yearning from below on our part. We have to grow it all the time, increase it, and we turn this desire for spirituality into the main thing, the most important thing that exists in our lives. Also, a person who's by himself is not bad or good. He's just beginning to develop. He starts from evil, from the egoism, and only when he starts to participate in the environment is the most powerful thing that influences us. Person is a social creature. He needs a society around him. That's a feedback. Envy, lust, honor. It's relative to people around us. We need to use the also in the 10 in the group, and we encourage one another. The example Avi reminded us, we take a friend that's a little in a descent and say let's do seemingly bestow to another friend he doesn't quite understand, but you do it in a very pleasant way with lots of love and a great deal of wisdom, so it wouldn't be so clear. And that's how we advance. We hold one another in this way. He writes beautifully that necessarily a person works for people if he's not in attainment yet, and precisely with this connection with people and feeling the distance, feeling the isolation, and that a person is not truly capable, and it's not really in his hands. Precisely from that one reaches a prayer, and that prayer is done specifically with the friends because the distance and the difficulty he feels, it's specifically towards connection. This is how we can truly scrutinize his true place, and then all of us together can come with a true demand to the Creator to correct it. And a person has all sorts of resistances and preventions, the way he sees it with his friends, how they annul themselves to relative to this eternal gulf which we have all gathered, and the ego depicts all kinds of purposeless things, and we need to overcome them. The beautiful sentence that we heard is that I realize myself by pushing the others. No one can advance by himself. Doesn't matter how talented he is. He needs to get support, and the best help is through example and prayer. Yesterday, we also heard, and before we go to the next part of the lesson, we'll sing a song. Teach me how to dance with you. Teach me how to listen. Let your words come through. Show me how to give for you. Show me how to live like there's only you. Through the fire, hand in hand, we held the ice away. Getting higher. Come closer, closer. lighting up the way, together in one voice, together in one song, all together in one dance, together as one. Sing, my single, in my land. Some more, together, through the fire, hand in hand, we melt their eyes away, getting higher, closer, closer, lighting up the way, together in one voice, together in one song, together in one dance, together as one. Meals in one voice, meals in one song, meals in one hand, meals in one heat, heat, heat. We are studying together with the study of Volume 1 Part 4, Item 5. Before the study we'll read from Ralph's words that will aim us for the lesson. I don't think it depends on you seeing me all the time. I take the recordings of Rabash, all our lessons with him or the conversations he had. Feel a difference between being next to him, because when he was alive besides me or listening to him through the recordings, it depends only on my intention. But I am ready. So, we're beginning with page 213, item 5. It says the following. There are no vessels prior to Ordum. Prior to the existence of the upper, light could not clothe in any vessel. That is because the vessels could not tolerate it, and the light did not clothe the vessels there, until the expansion of that great light reached the phase of then the existence of a single vessel, for that great light has been made, and there began a certain limitation of the light in absolute, which could not have been done thus far. So what does it say here? Before, the lights could not clothe with the vessels. After aim was made, then a single vessel was formed, and then there was the limitation of the light, which could not be until Ordum was made. So what is Ordum? This is what we need to learn. Where there were no vessels yet. Item 5. Inner light. What is aim regarded as the tens if you wrote of the two? Of the first part, the reality that follows the first restriction called Adam. Prior to that, before the restriction, there was no the upper light, but rather the upper light filled the entire reality. This is what the AR says. I'm repeating it. What does it say up here? What is we learned that about the goof? He is being precise here. He says before, meaning that before the top there was a rosh, and then he explains that before that, it is already called. No, so we have to interpret it again. I'm repeating it again. Item 8 regarded as a tensive of the talk of the first part, in the reality that follows the first restriction. This part is called. This is why I'm saying to what does it mean the first that emerged after the restriction, therefore before the meaning in no limitation. So he brings it as his evidence that I bring when I'm talking following the restriction, because before the restriction there was no matter of and to, and even with it is known that it is called. I'm talking about the witches. After the restriction it follows that before the to meaning in the there was no limitation yet. This is what he says afterwards. He writes prior to the existence of aim, before the meaning in the tense if he wrote in the of Adam that precede the tense of Adam, called the upper light, could not clow in any vessel. This is thoroughly explained in part 3 that there is no discernment of a vessel in the tense of the row, but only roots for the vessels. Follows. Therefore we said earlier that in the inner light and the surrounding light are one light, whereas where do they begin to be distinguished, to be separated in the goof where there is the limitation already, then it limits. This is called inner light, and what goes outside is called surrounding light. Now we need to begin item 9. Before the existence of the apple-light could not clow in any vessel. Now, item 9 below. So he explains what it means is, this refers to the tensify of the row of arc that the vessels can, because before there was no ability in the vessels to tolerate it. So why? So he explains item 9. The reflected light that rises from a lit upward is not regarded as a vessel of reception to the upper light, but only as the root for a vessel of reception, as we learned that by making the calculation in the wash of the degree he can later receive, thus as much as expands and broadens to tensify rho from her and within her by the reflected light that overturns and descends from above downwards. It is considered that he does not receive necessarily. There are no vessels there at all. It is so because the reflected light rises there from below upward, and any clothing from below upwards indicates below means the lower one that receives, and above means the bestower. When I say that the light comes from the receiver to the bestower, it indicates departure from reception, that we don't want to receive. If the lower one doesn't want to receive, this is considered from below upwards. Whereas if he doesn't clothe anything, so why do you call it clothing from below upwards? So he explains. The reason we call it clothing is that the tens of Pharaoh connect there and become a root for the clothing. This is why so on one hand it is the root for the clothing, so the calculation that he makes in the row that later on he can receive in the body, it follows that this is considered the root of the true clothing, but the root of the clothing he calls it clothing from below upwards, so that the receiver gives to the bestower what is called goof body, that he receives it from above from the vistor down to the receiver. This is called clothing that he already receives. Receives the receiver is called vessels. This is as the Ravi writes that the vessels could not tolerate it in the row. The vessels did not want to receive. The vessels wanted just Mhood. The connection is that because he doesn't want to receive only on the condition that it is in order to bestow, then he'll be able to receive it later. That's clear. What does it say? Look above. There. The light could not clothe in the vessel until the expansion of that great light reached the face of Ordum, and there a single vessel was formed. Now let's go down to item 10. Still in the reflected light with extend the tens of the to, meaning this is called from above downwards. Then a single vessel was made, meaning the vessel of Malat. She extended, broadened, and received the entire amount of light inside her, the tens of, meaning as much as was in the, which is considered in potential, that he said as much as he was able to receive in order to bestow it was only in potential, but now he receives it in actuality. So he says these tens of fear are called that descend from above downwards and expand in the vessel of Malad, that broad, and he says these are called the tensifi, or the world of Ordum. So what is precisely from the P downwards what is in the is he cannot yet call it, and he says and then started, then began to have the ability to limit the light, is the soft of that vessel which is regarded as the malhud of the vessel of Malhud. She stands in the taboo. She limits the upper light on its path from expanding from her downwards. The force of that limitation of the malu that lets it to expand from her down, which she makes a soft in end, is called by the name of taboo or kaz, and from there below it's already called the soft of the degree. What is the soft? The end. I don't want to receive this is, as he says that I want to receive this, is called soft end. It follows that there can be a limitation of the light. This is what I receive. This is what I do not, which could not be so far until item 30, meaning that although of the also limits the upper light, we learned that in the says this is what he will receive, this is what he will not receive, which is why coupling by striking occurred there. So why do you say that this limitation is done actually in the goof in the two? Indeed, this limitation and this reflected light, nevertheless, this limitation and this reflected of Russia don't regard as actual limitation, but only as potential limitation. The kettle is like a primal substance, containing only the root of the four elements, but in potential, not in actual fact. It is therefore possible to call it in soft and emanator, referring to the tens of ket. What he says that this is called when what he calls ket means emanator refers to the ket of the row. We learn the rule that every degree is divided into 5 phases. The of every degree is called the from the to the every degree it's called from the to the taboo it is called, and from the tab and downwards it is called. This is why he says what he says there, that ket is called, which is only in potential, not in actuality. He refers to the row of the degree if we're talking about what he, the fact that he received nothing, therefore we could call it in, we could also call it root for the 4 foundations or phases. What is the root? By making a calculation. Limitation in potential. He will receive that, but he will not receive this. Therefore later on there is the actuality of what to receive in actuality, what not to receive in actuality. it follows that the limitation of the vessels that there are refers to is specifically in the goof, but the root of it was also in the R, but you do not actually receive there. This is why he says that in the wash there's no limitation. He says there in part 2, answer 43. The question was what is a screen? And so he says the following. And the main question is what is the difference between the screen and the restriction? So he says the following. This is answer 43. The force of the restriction that emerges in the emanated being towards the upper light to stop it on its way from descending to phase 4, meaning that from the moment at it reaches and touches phase 4 and phase 4 is considered receiving in order to receive, immediately this force awakens. Which one? And it strikes it and repels it backwards. What does it say here? The force of the restriction that awakens in the emanated being when it reaches him towards the upper light that he extended it, let's say, and it touches face in reception in order to receive. Immediately this force awakens the force of restriction and strikes this light and repels it backwards. This force is called stream, and you should denote the difference between the state of the screen that is in the emanated being and the state of restriction within him. These are two completely separated matters, because the force of restriction done over phase 4 is directed towards the vessel in the emanated being, which is the yearning to receive. This means that, because of the desire to equalize its form with the emanator, it detained itself from receiving during this yearning to receive, because the yearning within him, called phase 4, is an upper force. His desire to actually do good to his creations operates in the lower one, a desire and a yearning to receive pleasure and delight. Since the innate being cannot cancel it or diminish it a little bit, but he can only detain himself not to want to receive even though he greatly earns it. Let's say while fasting, during fasting you're forbidden to eat, so he can't say that his body will not be hungry because he's forbidden to eat. He's not the master of that, but only what the master what he can do is not to let it eat, but the desire itself. He's not the master of it to say whether he's hungry or not hungry. This force of detainment to not let it always resides over phase 4 in the innated being. When is it relevant to say that he detains his desire? He's hungry, but he doesn't let it eat. But if he's not hungry and you let it eat anyway, he doesn't have any earning for eating. So when it is relevant to say that he detains when he has a desire to receive, this is why he says that his force of detainment always resides over face or in the innated being, except where he draws new light, then he necessarily must cancel this force of detainment, meaning the restriction in him. So then he uses the yearning, and this yearning for the upper light appears in him by using the yearning, then he has the power to draw the light to him. Therefore, he cancelled the restriction so as not to use it. No, not to eat. And he says yes, he does want to eat. He does draw the light, and hereafter he cancelled the restriction and he drew the light. The operation of the screen in the emanated being begins, because every yearning draws the up light in wholeness as it was in a soft, since it is an upper force, and the lower one has no control over it to diminish it. Therefore, the light comes down in order to fill phase 4. However, at that moment, when the light touches phase 4, immediately the screen awakens and it strikes the light and repels it backward. Because he wants equivalence of form, it follows by that he only he receives, but only the light of the 3 phases, meaning in order to bestow, and phase 4, which is called in order to receive, does not receive. Thus you see that the operation of the screen applies only when light arrives, after the force of the restriction was cannelled for some time. What does that mean? For some time, in order to draw new light as explained, and the operation of the restriction is eternal constant to detain himself to not draw light. Thus the restriction and the screen are 2 completely separated discernments. And you should know that the screen is a consequence of the restriction. Here too, he says that every phase receives the face or the quality of soft, and we should say that every face receives from soft, meaning just as y in and soft he was shining to the receiver, in order to receive in the same way. Every face wants to receive in order to receive as it was in and soft. So why? Because this phase or this discernment is in control. But what we need to know is what to receive, in that there is a distinction between the lower one to the upper one. Each one sees what there is to receive. But here we're talking in a way that it's all about the relation. How, and the relation is that each and every degree wants to receive from his will to receive, which comes to him from the side of the world of himself, which is called his desire to do good to his creations, which was shining also to his vessels of reception. Therefore, immediately the force of restriction called the screen awakens, and he doesn't receive it because of what he wants, but only in the free phases, meaning he makes a calculation of how much he's able to receive so as not to blemish the restriction. What was the restriction? Equivalence to form he wants to be in, equivalence of form and receive in such a way. This is called the rush of the degree, and then comes this limitation, which was in potential, not that he received or that he did not receive, but only down below when he begins to receive. This is called the goof. Then we say that there is a limitation on the vessel. It follows that what this says above, that, as this says, that then after the light expanded in the goof of the caladim, then this is from the pen below. Then there began to be some limitation of the light. Where was that in aiming? Called below, which could not have been. Thus far in the rush of the degree there was a limitation, but it was in potential. It's not that he received or did not receive, but in actuality it begins in the goof, is called in actuality. This is what I received, this is what I do not. Then a vessel is formed. So this means that before the of the expanded and perceived, this is called the spur of. This is where received. This means that the limitation started, because the cleave is called talk, and limitation means the soft was only what she received only in potential. She actually received it from where do we start talking about the vessels only in, which is called the goof. So the question is the following. If we make a rule that all the Sephiro are extended from the world of insult, and as we learned there about the four faces of direct light, those same qualities apply once and for all, meaning that there are 3 phases, which we call the first 9, since phase 3 includes 6 phases. This is why we call them the first 9, and this is considered light. Why? Since the phase of the receiver was not yet born receiver in order to receive, so it will be a phase in and of itself, and the first time that this phase appeared. So this phase is considered the root of the emanated beings. This means that this malhut is the one that attains, and before this malhut there is no attainment, and this was done later also, even though what we are talking about was in the world of. Why? Because there is no light without a vessel. Who says that there is? Who can say that there is light? One who attains it. If no one attains it, who knows what exists? Therefore, how can we talk about the tense of? We should be talking only from malhut onwards. So he says that after Malat emerged, then we can talk about the first time, meaning what Malhut attains. Her elements, the things that made Malhut emerge. That follows that the first 3 phases, called the first 9, right, those 3 phases Mouth attains. How they are, it follows that phase 4 within phase 4, this is her own face, which is called the yearning to receive in order to receive. And who created that? The desire to bestow, his desire to do good to his creations created this vessel that attained the first night, which are called 3 phases. It is considered the 3 phases in Mal. So now Malhut has 4 phases. Why before that? We don't know. What do we know? What she attained. This is what we are talking about. Therefore, which face she wants to? Does she want to restrict her own face, which is called phase 4 within phase 4? Whereas the 3 phases that she attain, they are only vessels of bestow. This is not yet regarded as receiving in order to receive. Therefore, when there was a restriction, the light had to depart only from phase 4 within phase 4, and the 3 phases that she attained, it should have remained. What is phase 4 within phase 4? Receiving in order to receive, and what she attained is that there are 3 phases. Attain that as well. He is she God, but how can she? Well, she attained that the is entirely to bestow. She attained that the beaner is a little bit more of the she. Attained in Zeren is a little bit more, because she attained that. What did she attain? That he is the receiver, and he is the giver. We don't say that she attained herself, that she is the receiver. We know that receive. She attained that in the first 9. They do not become separated from the anator. Where do we become separated from the anator? In the receiving, in order to receive. This is why we don't want to receive in order to receive. So he's asking, accordingly, light should have come out from what? From the phase 4 within phase 4. The phase 3 and 4 contain vessels of stall. So if the light lets divide, if that degree attained it, the degree can only have 3 phases should come first over 3 phases. Therefore she extended the light again for over 4 phases. But how much she attained is called wholeness. Not how much came, but how much she attained. Again before she attained all 4 phases. That teaches us to divide. That's why it has to depart. The light has to depart from 4 phases. And then she extended the light again in wholeness, which awakens the yearning, and it comes to the vessel of reception. Only when the light comes over all 4 phases, the force of restriction awakened, and she made a screen, and she said, I don't want to receive. The phase 4 of itself called receiving in order to receive, even though I have great yearning from the side of the emanator. She wants equivalence of form. This means that the force of restriction awakened in her called a screen. What did the screen do? Seemingly, calculation, how much you can receive from this in order to bestow. We call these 3 qualities, meaning, but he does it bestow, but not, as was there the 3 phases, but only. The difference, as I said before, that Malat received 3 phases which are vessels of bestow, and its own quality, or she had its own quality, its own phase, and she also attained those who created it, who caused her to be. Now who received them, who attains them? They say in order to bestow. Therefore, if I say in order to bestow is called in us as reflected light. The lower one wants to bestow to the upper one. Where did he get this power? From a screen that detained it from receiving in order to receive. Except here, there's an addition of what was not there before, meaning we are speaking generally, that we're not saying that the 3 phases is perceived from the overall light, and the phase 4 did not receive, except we learn it differently. If she's not receiving in order to receive, only she receives as much as she can bestow. In how much she can bestow, there are many discernments there. Again, what we have these many worlds and many parts. Who does this to us? The screen, as much as we can bestow it, gives us many discernments. That's why when we study generally the 3 phases, it doesn't mean anything. Yet, how much can she receive in 3 phases? This is what you should ask you. Understand. So what's it about? We use vessels of reception with the will to receive. Therefore, we use what? Not the 3 phases. The vessel of reception. Rather, just as the 3 phases say that they are not considered vessels of reception. Now the mal that makes reflected light, it's on the 3 phases, but it's not 3 phases, it's mal. 3 phases are called light without a kli, without a vessel. Therefore the definition of the 3 phases need explanation here, not something abstract. 3 and 4, I'll take 1, 3, I'll take 3. This is only language. From this language, many things are intuited, that things that we need to scrutinize them, and we need to clarify. What is to? She says, I want to receive, because I wish to bestow. This is called inner light, until it comes to the mal of, as we learned of, called tab, which is called the reality of limiting the light. So what does the soft say? I don't want to receive. Why? Because I want a Tishan. They say as long as he says he doesn't want, because of the light of, then there's the light of the, with the illumination of that's what you have there, she attains it in the thersma. Actually, why does she say that? She wants to receive, and here you only have illumination by wanting and not wanting to receive, and for the because of a Tishan it she receives. What do you want to add in that? We learned 4 phases of direct light. What did we learn? That we call Biner in its end after receiving the light. Then the branch wants to resemble its root. He does not want to receive. He wants Hatitian. For that she received the light of. Then we learned. There was a lot of, but the illumination of Kaladin. Why, that without, you cannot live. Why, his desire to do good to his created beings was on the light of. Abby once desires equivalence of form. That is why it seemingly invented this compromise to receive the light of, a little bit of, called an illumination of. Later came another push from above. His desire to do good to created beings was not in Zanpan only broadly, and she doesn't have it. That's why she went, and she extended the light broadly, called the light that fills all of reality, even phase 4 and 4 as well. After receiving the light, like, in its end awakened again in equivalence of form to make a compromise like be it, doesn't work. She found a new invention. She will not receive in order to receive. Not receive called restriction, only in order to bestow. She went, and he extended the light in return, so he can receive it. So you can receive it in order to bestow, which is what we call a line and a screen from below up. Turns out who made the restriction, that is called the receiver. In order to receive, she went and extended this light. What? Light. In order to bestow. Accept it, doesn't want it. It's called a restriction. If she does want it, it's called extension. This is the whole thing, but he who gives, if so, it comes out from the root of the screen. So we learned that the force of restriction that awakened is called a screen, and this gives you the strength. The force, what did we learn? After surrounding light came and cancel. This force then, it doesn't have the power to overcome. It says that it goes up to the row of the degree where this force still exists, and it receives again the power to overcome the force to overcome, since she lacks the records, and he receives the force to overcome on a smaller degree. But who gives the power? The restriction. Indeed, these words of the are deeper than deep, and we need to understand them since Matthew 7, for they pertain to the very root of the wisdom and its beginning. We must determine the difference between potential and actual. The speaks of, it divides between the tense fat of the that clothe the reflected light from below upward, and the tense field of the goof that clothe the reflected light from above downward. It is for that reason that the tense f, sometimes called from the fact that they go from below up, sometimes they called and emanator to the t of the goof. What's the difference? There's a great difference in distance between the reflected light that rises from the screen in mile upward, from below up clothing the t of the reflected light that descends with a direct light from the tense field of d down to the g. It appears that they are opposite from one another, because the reflected light that rises from below upward, not only is it not regarded as a vessel of reception for the clothing direct light, but it even has in it resistance to reception. It is so because any from below upward means that the light turns to the emanator and not to the receivers. Again, from above it's called, from below it's called receiver. From above the store, from below up, the receiver wants to offer this light to the emanator. He doesn't want to receive this light. However, the ascending reflected light still becomes clothing for the upper light. In other words, it becomes the root for the attachment of the upper light to the emanated being, says the vessel of Malat of the Rush, which weighs that reflected light, is expanded and broadened by it from her and within her, and becomes a vessel of reception called the goof of the. It is so because the tense field of the descend from above downward ward and expand and clothe from the bestower to the receiver, and expand and clothe within her, meaning she retains it. You see that although from the perspective of their own quality the tense of the depart from coming into the vessel of reception, as this is the meaning of reflected light that rises from below upward, meaning to the innator and not to the innated beings. Nevertheless, all the light that is actually received in the goof is only from the tense field of the that expand in it from above downward, as explained below. He explains to us that we should distinguish in the two discernments. 1. The light comes to Malat, and she doesn't want to receive it. She rejects it. In this sense I can say that all of the light rises from below up, meaning all the light from below up, upwards. Later we say another thing, and she makes a calculation how much she can receive in order to bestow. and she says I can receive this, and the other one I cannot receive, meaning what I cannot aim in order to bestow, that I should not receive. In that sense there is on the one hand she doesn't want to receive anything. Later you make a calculation what you can receive, but you haven't received yet. That's why we say that. With this green that rejects the light, we can discern two phases, two aspects. On the one hand, she doesn't receive anything, and on the other hand, she says that she can receive it. It makes us think that later she goes and receives. The fact that she goes and receives in practice in actuality means where does it come from? From the potential in if. If so, we should discern. She received or did not receive in the. No wonder in the osh there was an action where she could not receive. What do we call her? H is the root from which something is extended. If it's negative, why is it extended from the negative? From that it's extended from the calculation that she made where she does receive from below up. So he says here that the row is called, and the inator why. There is someone who attains it. So he speaks from the creator, whereas the goof already receives something. We should talk about the created being. For this reason the 10 spur of the row are considered to have 10 potential spur, but not actual. It means the actual clothing of the light in the vessels is not at all in there, but only the potential, and the root from which this clothing will be extended. That is why is called insuf, or I conclude what it says at the end of the page on the column 1. Therefore, we can call there an emanator, but before that the begins in below, that there is the primeval matter. The ket is like a primeval matter that has all the root of all 4 foundation or 4 elements in practice, and not in actuality. What is in the it's in potential there is the root for the goof. Therefore he ends by saying you can call it the ends of an inator, meaning there is still no created being there. Who is the created being? The receiver who attains. There's no one who attains. That's what Ari says, and there says, then meaning after the light expanded in the goof of the poo called aim, the existence of a single vessel, so that there has been a great certain limitation of the light in it which could not have been done thus far. It means that before the meaning in the mal of there could not be any limitation there, because when mal limits and raises reflected light in the tense field of where limitation is actual bestow, since the greater the limitation, the greater the measure of bestow, because the limitation of phase 4 extends the level of, and a smaller limitation meaning only on phase 3 extends only the level of. Thus no limitation is discerned in the whatsoever. It's a little difficult. We said what is limitation in the goof now. The screen of taboo says I don't want to receive any more. What is limitation in the same thing? It's how much I can receive. This I can aim in order to bestow, and this I cannot aim. He wants to say that limitation meaning the screen is called limitation. He says the main limitation is and to do in practice. In potential, what in potential will later expand in actuality. You find that this limitation is called bestow. We lack a little bit of clarification on it, so we have to start item 40. Even though you don't see the 10 lights only after the end of aim. What is the meaning only after the end of aim? We'll see item 40 below. Meaning only after the 2 and sag emerged and were revealed, when the light entered and departed the vessel 10 times, and these entrances and exits created and distinguished the 10 separate lights, as will be explained friendly, that the force of these 10 lights, only because there was no light in them in the beginning, because the light was not limited in the vessel, it was not its represence or reality was not apparent. What is the matter here? What does he want here? Why wants to tell us? Since according to the rule, the light divide according to the vessels. If he says aim means that there is no more than a single vessel, how can we discern 10 lights if there is no more than a single vessel? So he says that it was in potential, and when is it apparent in those 10 lights? Only after the end, the completion. Aim also there is no more. Even the completion of aim, he explains. What is the completion of aim? Look at item 40 meaning only after the perim and sag merged and were revealed. Those are called ordum. There was only a single vessel, so the free give it. So he says that the light, when the light entered and departed the vessel 10 times, and these entrances and exits cremated and distinguished the 10 separate lights, as it will be explained later. He says the following: in the gala there was a single vessel, and in of there was also one vessel, but it was present and not present. Whereas in the gala it wasn't present, and not present meaning the light departed, and when it departed, when it exited from the tam, and there was the clash of the inner light and surrounding light, the refinement of the screen began, the screen was refined, and afterwards the light did not come back. Whereas in the pu of it is called present and not present, the light departed, and then the light came back, as we will learn later, and in part of sag says that there is permanent, present and not present. After malat of sag departed, again the kettle of sag begins. This is why there are 10 exits and 10 entrances, even though there is only one vessel there. But it was sufficient for him to say that there would be a distinction of 10 lights. Indeed, of course, the force of or the potential of these 10 lights was in them to begin, with item 50 below. This is before they expanded to a meaning in the 10 of the, where the 10 are only in potential and not in actuality. So he says there that in the row of there were also 10 sephiro in potential, and it wasn't apparent, but only it wasn't apparent only in potential. Let's look further only because the light was not limited inside the vessel. So in 1960 he says this imitation that Malhid limits up to here it is allowed to receive the light, and from here onwards it is forbidden, and I will no longer receive, begins to manifest only through a coupling by striking, and the essence of reflected light from below upwards. In the second look that comes after, the clothing of the light in the emanated being meaning after aim. However, the light is not limited by the first look of there, and remember that, and in part 5, in item 23 this says these 4 phases are the existence of the 4 letters of Javier. So he explains, why is it so? Because you know already that in the name it starts only from and below, and he explains in inner light. Javier starts only from downwards, as it is known that the youth means, the B means, the first H means, and the last H means, but the K is not implied in those 4 letters, but only in the tip of the Y. So why does the R why? The R says there in item 24 that it is letters. He says the following in item 24, and the reason is that down below in the 10s if you in the newer from below therefore deficiencies for the light, and this in itself causes calling this name in the upper light so that it can be called by the name Javier. Those 4 deficiencies therefore follows that the the pu of the coupling that was in the roof expands to the goof. This is what he says here. This limitation begins to manifest only through a coupling by striking, and the essence of reflected light from below upwards in the we're going to go to read from the Zohar Apple. We were reading from Zohar for All, Volume 1, the introduction to the book of Zohar, article the 14th commandment, item 255. Introduction in the book of Zohar, article the 14th commandment, item 255. We'll aim ourselves with the correct connections between the souls. As we read the text we hear something from these holy books, we immediately need to aim ourselves toward the connection between the souls, where it speaks about the correct connection, all types of manners of connection that exist in the system between the souls, that connect together into a single soul, general soul called, and then in this soul as it's written here, and he placed the spirit of life in it. The light of the Creator has revealed the light of so moon, the earth, the distances between us. Types of actions we're talking about, the connection between us, everything, between me and the others. That's how I need to depict everything that's written here. The correct connections between the souls is what's depicted in the text. Only that, in this corrected network, I reveal spirituality. 255. There is a place in hell for those who desecrate the Sabbaths, those who are punishing who are punished. In hell curse those who light the candles before it is time, telling him, behold, the Lord will hurl you up and down with a man's robe. He will violently roll and toss you like a ball into an expansive country. Yes, commentary, there is an evildoer called evil-eyed, who loves curse as it is written, and he loved cursing and it came to him, and he does not desire blessing. When a person curses himself, he thus gives strength to that evil-eyed who loves curse to govern him, thus inflicting harm on himself. And one who throws bread or crumbs more than the size of an olive. There is nothing in this world without an important root above. It is all the more so with bread upon which man's life depends. Thus, it has a very important root above. Therefore, one who slights one's bread flaws the root of his life above. This is clear to any person only in a satiating meal which gives him life. However, with bread and crumbs that are only the size of an olive, some people slight them and throw them, because they are not satiating. But since one must bless the blessing for the food even as much as an olive, they must be regarded as a satiating meal and must not be slighted. One who slights them inflicts harm upon himself. The ministering angel said to the Creator, "It is written in your law, who does not show partiality, or nor take a bribe, yet you are partial toward Israel. As it is written, the Lord will lift up his countenance to you." He replied, "How would I not lift my face to Israel, for whom I wrote in the Torah, when you have eaten and are say and are satisfied, you shall bless the Lord your God, and they are meticulous about themselves to the size of an olive and the size of an egg." Thus, because of the meticulousness on the size of an olive, considering it a satisfying meal, although it is not, we are rewarded with the Creator lifting up his face to us, even though we are not worthy. It follows that those who slight crumbs the size of an olive and do not consider them a satisfying meal are not rewarded with the Creator's favor and cause themselves harm. Also, one who lights a candle at the end of the Sabbath before Israel reached the service, holiness, causes lighting of the fire of hell without fire. This is so because until that time it is Sabbath. The sanctity of the Sabbath governs him, and the fire of hell still does not govern him as on Sabbath. One who lights the candle prior to the service, holiness, is regarded as desecrating the Sabbath, for he lights the fire of hell before its time, thus harming himself. There is a special place in hell to punish those who desecrate the Sabbath, as desecration of the Sabbath is the worst. Those who are sentenced in hell curse him for what he has caused by his actions lighting the fire of hell before its time. 256. He is unfit for lighting the candle when the Sabbath ends, before Israel separate by prayer and separate over the cup. For until that time it is Sabbath, and the sanctity of the Sabbath governs us. And after the separation over the cup, all those hosts and all those camps appointed over the weekdays return each to his place and to the work on which he's appointed. Since the prohibition is primarily only until the service of holiness, however, one should be careful not to light a candle until after the separation, because until that time it is still considered Sabbath. However, it is certainly permitted to light a candle for the separation, and the Creator of lights of fire. We conclude with that. Thank you and have a great day. Together we grow. Light awakens our soul. The spark of love flashes. Ego is turning to ashes. In lessons with friends, we discover his hands. No lies on the path. I promise I'll cover your back. When we pray for our connection, we can hear his call. We are following. One go. We are ready. We are ready to go. When we step into the light about reason so high, together we can fly above the sky. In my club, hey, a medical. Together we grow. Light awakens our soul. The spark of the flashes. Ego is turning to ashes. We step into the light about reason so high. Together we can fly above the sky. Hey, medic. Hey, yeah, hold on.